All right, greetings. I hope everyone can hear me. All right, shout out to everyone that's joining me this evening. And this is Professor Griff, and of course, this is Black Power Media Reloaded. All right. And the name of the show is the Masses, right here on Black Power Media Reloaded. Shout out to Kalanji, shout out to the staff over there, Black Power Media, and of course, we reloaded. And thank you all very much for joining me on the new time change. Had to shift from the 12 o'clock hour to the 8 o'clock hour. Some other things are kind of going on and going down that I need to kind of make sure they happen during the day. So, yeah. All right. Shout out to everyone in Kansas City, Missouri. They say Kansas City, Missouri is present. Thank you for being present. Really appreciate that. Denver, Colorado's in the building. All right. All right. Shout out to everyone in us. All right. Anyway, we're going to have an interesting show tonight. So just bear with me, fam. Energy is kind of, so. This is a Monday, so we're going to try to get things together for the rest of the week and make sure they happen the way they need to happen. Anyway, paper genocide. This is Indigenous Peoples Day. All right? Indigenous Peoples Day. What does that say for the indigenous people that were here prior to anyone being on this part of the earth as Pangea separated itself? All right. Family, if I say anything that you don't quite understand, I think I'm pacing myself in such a way where we can look these things up. All right. That landmass was called Pangea. All right. So then, of course, there were people already populating this part of that particular landmass. All right. And over a period of time, the one landmass called Pangea separated. And it separated, forming the continents. All right. Some of us ended up here and some of us ended up here, but we are the same people. And I'm going to need you to understand that point before we move on, because some of the people that you're seeing now that's saying they are indigenous, if they're not in that particular bloodline, tradition, heritage, or however you want to twist up the English language, that's fine with me, according to your understanding. All right. Then we can honestly say, and some cannot say, that they are indigenous. All right. I believe it was Dane, Calloway, that talked about the $5 Indian. Shashi McIntyre talked about that concept way before I think Dane Calloway was born. So I'm hearing it for the third and fourth time in my life. So yeah, that history was given to us in several books, the Black Indian and other books that we can kind of read. If you still read books and if you still study. We used to sit at lectures and talk about these things and go to study groups and build and discuss those things. Stand around in ciphers and go to the parliament and discuss these things. All right. To a lot of people that may be listening and watching right now, your generation may have gotten it from a Dane Calloway, which is a beautiful thing. Not to say that anyone's right or wrong. The information is there for you to take, put it under a microscope, piece it apart. All right. Okay. So now, so then understanding that concept, when the United States government, deemed it necessary to create documents and records and a paper trail and ledgers and deeds and this whole concept that they kind of came up with. It wasn't for the good of those individuals that did not necessarily need it. We knew who was related to who. We didn't have to write it down. We knew the traditions. We didn't have to write them down. It was an oral tradition. We knew our rituals and we knew our ceremonies. All right? We didn't have to put it in a book and pass it down. All right? It was written in the hearts and minds of the people. All right? So, since we have records, all right, the records have been and had been manipulated for control, population control, the control of who gets rights to certain freedoms as far as certain land, whatever it is. So these records are now kept and distorted. These records have become the object of what we call today the concept of paper genocide. I'm not sure they're still allowing us to say genocide on YouTube and Facebook or whatever, so we won't. What would you say, G-side? Okay. That in and of itself, having to curb your language, G-side don't hit the way it should hit. You understand what I'm saying? So when we're talking about paper G-side, then we're talking about the idea of erasing an entire people on records, using paper records and documents. All right? This is what we're talking about. So we don't have to constantly get into this whole debate and argument about who's Native American, who's indigenous, who's, yeah. If those traditions were kept in the 100 or so Native American tribes that existed way before the European ever stepped foot in the United States, all right, then those that are honoring those individuals today, yes, we could do that. Those individuals that are celebrating their heritage, their traditions, yes, let's do that. Those individuals that have kept the tradition from the tribes, even though the complexion of the tribes have changed, let's continue to do that. But for all intents and purposes, let's get the record straight. So those of us that strictly go by the records, by the documents, and I'm saying you're doing yourself a disservice and you cannot do that simply because they erased certain tribes that were on. It was difficult for me when I went out to try to find the Blackfoot Native American indigenous Blackfoot tribe. Any Blackfoot out there, all right, please let me know. But the idea of being erased via your records that was kept by the same individual that didn't want you to exist in the first place. All right. Yeah. It was a brutal history that the Native American experienced here in America. All right. So much so, some of them among certain tribes even wanted to own black people. That is a fact. That's not something that we're just going to sweep under the rug and act like it didn't exist. All right. Okay, so let's understand this. All right. There are black Native American indigenous people still walking among us today. There's still tribes that are there that know the history and know the stories. All right. Know the tradition. All right. But they are rarely brought to the surface, really brought to the forefront and really recognized. All right. So this day, we are going to recognize all of those Black, indigenous, Native American tribes simply because the $5 Indian is the one that's recognized. Even when it comes down to what has been altered in the record. Once we come along and set the record straight, will they then in turn recognize the Black, indigenous, Native American tribes? All right. Okay. So, with that said, when we start to look into some of these, I mean, how could you say it? There is material that's out there that you can look up right now as we speak, and being that it's easier now to go online and look up some of these things, we have to begin to connect the dots. There are books out there. There are scholars out there. There are historians out there that will tell the record. All right. There are tribes that, that are out there that still celebrate, that are Black and indigenous, that get together, and they're not even mentioned in the records. They're just written off as Negro or colored. I don't even think they're referring to Black people as Black at that particular time. All right. So the idea of paper genocide. Let me see if I can pull up the article that I had. Oh, excuse me, family. My energy is just a little bit off. All right. Okay. It is no secret that America is a melting pot of cultures. Yet while some people of European, African, and Native descent can claim a single racial or ethnic identity, Black, African, others have intersectional identities, meaning bring the intersected with all these particular identities and kind of morph them together, such as in the case of Black Native Americans. Because their lineage traces back to both African and indigenous origins, Black Native Americans' genetic heritage distinguishes them from other African American and Native American communities. Despite making up a small percentage of the population, Black natives have have a rich history in the U.S. Unfortunately, their stories are often left out of the history books, which is why we must speak about them now in this present day time that we live in. But to simply say, I am a Black Indian is probably not enough, because you're left and you're charged with the responsibility, the duty of proving it. And then you turn and go to the records that they have tainted. What are you saying, Professor Griff? In essence, in a nutshell, I'm just basically saying that Black people are the Native Americans that you speak of. All right. So let's explore the history and the genetics of Afro-Indigenous to better understand this diverse yet unrepresented community. All right. Black people are the Native Americans. All right. African Native Americans are people whose lineage traces back to both Native American and its African roots. Why is it so difficult to understand that? That's not hard. That's not hard. All right. If people are just tuning in, this is Professor Griffin. Of course, this is On the Masses. Having to change my time slot from having to change my time slot from 12 noon to 8 p.m. All right. 12 noon to 8 p.m. So my intention is to build this thing back up to an audience that will support the platform. And then not only that, engage in the platform. All right. It's imperative that we do that, because the format that I am trying to create, once we get it to that point, is just have people come on and speak about the subject matter in which we're talking about. All right. Smitty Lynn Smith said, yo, you made a live? Okay, I got you. Or you made this one. Okay, got you. Okay. So with that said, whether it's articles or whether it's information that we have to kind of get out to those of us that have become members or subscribers, then we'll do that. All right. Okay. So this is the environment that we want to create in order to have the discussion. The discussion is not long, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes at best. Get in, get the information. So just now from the outstart, let me say this while pressing the pause button. Salute to all the indigenous, the Black, Native American indigenous tribes that still exist. Shout out to the Native American tribes that are existing. We're not going to just discount you. All right. You have a rich history and a rich heritage, your traditions, your rituals, and just the Native American people. We're in solidarity with the Native brothers and sisters. All right. We're not having this talk to separate ourselves from them, although there needs to be a recognition of who and what we are on this side of that coin. All right. And then to some degree, have a cultural exchange. All right. And have them understand that Black people in America, form the basis of the Native American tribes. It wasn't like the tribes were formed and then we came along. No, the tribes came up out of Black people in America. All right. Okay. Now, this idea of whence this whole idea of Indians being called Indians, now that's something that came a whole lot later on. And then the whole idea of the paper Geno-Cide kind of took place. All right. So we're going to say salute to all of those Native American tribes. This is that day that they called Columbus. We don't need to go over the history of Columbus because you already know who Columbus is. All right. If you're still thinking, this just a hint. If you're still thinking he was this Italian dude, no, you're wrong. Go back and do your research. Do a deeper dive. All right. Okay. Okay. So we can field some of the comments as we kind of have the discussion. Lee Hout says Columbus can be honored for his successful journey, but he didn't discover a damn thing. Right. He never stepped foot in America. I'm going to say that again in English. Christopher Columbus never stepped foot in the United States of America. Christopher Columbus never stepped foot in America. Marinate on that. All right. Okay. So with that said, then we can dive deeper into who are the indigenous people here in America. All right. So keep in mind, when I gave you the example of Pangea separating, the place over here was not called America yet. And then the place over here was not called Africa. So to those of us that came before Africa and America, then we are those individuals. We are those people. All right. Now, having to trace who we are back, yes, we might end up in a place called America and in a place called Africa. All right. But these places were not called these things back then. We were before Africa and we were before America. I'm going to let you marinate on that for a minute. Trying to keep my temperament even keel. Okay. We were before this place called Africa. We were before this place called America. So for you to come along with this Johnny come lately kind of cut and paste kind of history that you kind of working with, given to you by YouTube University and InstaSlam and Facebook, that's not going to work. That's not going to suffice. Not at all. All right. That's not going to suffice. We have to come better than that with a deeper and a rich history that we have. We can pull from it. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. So when we go on these rooms, especially on TikTok and in Twitter, X, and other places, we need to bring all of the receipts. All right. So as we approach the 30-minute mark, I'm going to open up the phone lines. But we need to know and understand who and what we are, all right, as a people, and know our history. You see, the very main reason why they cut us off from our history is so we won't get together and discuss this. Some of these things that we need to discuss. All right. When we start talking about the idea of Black Native Americans, there was a minute ago, there was no need to put a quote unquote complexion or color on it until the other ones started shunning us out and making us think that we have absolutely nothing to do with this concept called indigenous people and or Native American or even the tribal stuff. I showed up at the Blackfoot tribal ceremonies, and it wasn't a warm welcome, but I knew my history, and it took me to Montana. It took me to Billings and some other places. It took me to Dakota. So I just said, okay, I ended up in California, and I just said, okay, that's as much as I can do. I can't do it anymore. All right. Because back then when I did this, I didn't have that much history up under my belt. All right. And knowing and understanding who we were. All right. All right. So now that there are books that are out there that are written, the Black Indians. All right. This guy right here looks like my dad. Black Indians and an American Story. All right. This is one of the popular books that was circulating when I came up. Hold on. I'm trying to get it on the script. Right. Okay. I'm trying to get it on the screen so you can see it and you can go look it up. The Black Hiddens, the hidden heritage. Who are the Black Indians? William Loren Katz. All right. Let's look up some of this information. All right. So we can know who and what we are and how they hid the information from us. All right. We need to know this. I want to know. I'm sure you want to know. Because back in the day in high school, we always used to say, I got Indian in my family. All right. Not really knowing what that actually meant. All right. Akabulan is the term sometimes used to refer to the continent of Africa as its ancient indigenous name, which translates to Mother of Mankind or Garden of Eden. Thank you very much. At Al Cooper, 1348. Really appreciate you. Prior to it being called that, what was it called? And who were we at that particular time? Was there a need for us to call us African or Black if African in America didn't exist yet? Were we Alkebulianis? What were we? All right. Or were we just gods and goddesses? All right. Was there a need at that particular time to denote race? No, the whole idea of the race construct came a whole lot later on. All right. All right. So it's the 30-minute mark here. I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines for you to come on in and have this discussion if you'd like. No pressure. Just keep in mind we don't argue. I'm not debating and I'm not arguing. All right, I have one of them old phones, the kind that when you really hang the phone up on somebody, they hear it. I got one of them phones over here. All right. All right, if you're just tuning in, this is Professor Griff, and this is Arm the Masses right here on Black Power Media Reloaded. Coming up next at the 9 o'clock hour is Writers Row. And my sister, Mecca, will be on here discussing her book, all right, Feeling It, hip-hop memoir. And, of course, my brother Adam will be on here discussing his book and his body of work. And y'all know we changed the name. We changed the name from Writers Row to the Writers Block. All right? All right. Hold on one second, fam. All right. All right. All right. So I put the link in the chat for people to come on. All right. So the idea of this particular landmass, all right, and us ruling this particular landmass from our throne. Our throne wasn't called Africa at that particular time, and this place wasn't called America. All right. So with that, as far as a foundation or as the backdrop, all right, we can stop having those silly arguments about I'm African, I'm American. Of course, we have different cultures, and we have a common thread that runs through all of our cultures if you take time to recognize what those common things are. All right. This is why I always say the divinity in me salutes and celebrates the divinity in you. All right. Because until we find out what that common thread is, then we will never know. All right. All right. Who do we got? Matt, what's up with you? All right. Nope. There's certain people we're not allowing to come on because their level of disrespect. We're not doing that. No. Yeah. No. All right. I may be nice enough to let you still come on, but you're not actually coming on to speak to the people. This ground where you stand is sacred. We're not doing that. If I've been charged with the responsibility and the duty of raising the vibrational pitch of our people into the mind of God, into the mind of their higher self, into their higher self, then I'm responsible for who I bring and allow to come on the platform. And we're not doing that. We're not playing those games with the hearts and minds of the people. I'm responsible for that. I'm charged with that from the creator right on through to Kalaji, who's allowed me to be on this platform, through the people at Black Power Media Reloaded, and those people that support what I do. All right. All right. Okay. So today we're discussing the paper genocide. All right. My other computer went out on me up here. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Paper genocide is the intentional systematic use of government records and policies to erase the identity, history, and existence of an ethnic or cultural group. This is the subject we're talking about today. Paper genocide, Black, indigenous, Native Americans. All right. Hold on. Anyway. Where was I? Oh, it is a process of bureaucracy or the bureaucratic erasure with generational consequences. So this whole idea of this bureaucratic kind of fancy way of saying the government is responsible, with generational consequences used to suppress the legal rights and historical claims of marginalized communities, particularly indigenous and African American people. All right. Okay. Okay. What are some of the key mechanisms of paper genocide? Forced relocation or reclassification, manipulation of census, imposing racial hierarchies, colorism, undermining treaty and land rights, imposing new naming conventions. All right. So these are the things that they put in place, stripping Black people yet again of their culture, their heritage, their names. All right. What are the consequences and impacts? The effects of the paper genocide are ongoing and have created immense challenges for communities seeking to reclaim their identities and histories. In the process of reclaiming, all right, let's not fight and kill one another. All right. We're going back to reclaim. All right. So you may run into somebody a little bit lighter than you. You may run into somebody with their hair a little bit straighter or a little bit more nappier than yours. All right. Let's not discount them. The same dog that bit them bit us too. All right. One thing we do have in common is the history of Christopher Cologne. You might call him Christopher Columbus. All right. But understand his history and why it was necessary to give him the credit for discovering America. And if your children are in school learning that same tired madness, you might want to check that seriously. If they're coming home today from school or going to school tomorrow, because today is a federal holiday, if they're going to school tomorrow, those school programs that they have still calling us Indians and still, going having the plays and going through this other stuff about these people being benevolent, kind of righteous Christians that saved the Native Americans. Stop it. So, of course, Black people are the group that's constantly, historically, been reclassified over and over and over and over again. Even in my lifetime, we were coloreds, we were Negroes, we were all kind of stuff. Headquarters is in ATL, Aboriginal Republic of North America. Give me some more information so I can put it up on the screen. And thanks for the super chat. All right, really appreciate you. All right. So this whole idea of the consequences and the impact of this idea of paper genocide are ongoing and have created immense challenges for communities seeking to reclaim their identities and histories. Difficulty proving lineage. It's difficult when you got to trace yourself back and you run into a dead end because of some paperwork. Barriers to recognition, lack of documentation, the erasure of culture and heritage, weaponizing bureaucracy. The tactic of demonstrates how administrative processes and seemingly neutral data collection methods can be weaponized and to suppress and marginalize the group, thus forcing us in a bottleneck where they just, with one swoop of the pen, call all of us Negroes when we were from different tribes. We were from different tribes when they rounded us up and brought us here. We were from different tribes when they ran into us when we were already here. All right? So no one understands. You have to study your history. So it's not wrong for you to say you got Indian in your family or native blood. I say it to some people all the time when I run into somebody at the grocery store or whatever, and I see it in them. I said, you have native blood? They said, some people tell me I do. I'm like, oh, okay. You might want to look into that. Well, that's how the conversation started off with me searching and researching the Blackfoot Native American indigenous tribal lineage. All right. So, yeah. And then when they didn't want to keep the records, they just burned it down, burn all the records up. At one particular time, they didn't have to know your name because you had no rights to a name. They would call you whatever they wanted to call you. Why you think there's so many Johns in America? And then John's son. And then when they got mad and started arguing, one called themselves John Stun, son of John. Everybody's name wasn't John. So study the history. Know your history. So when we have these conversations in these rooms, all right, we can build again. We can dialogue again, as opposed to being at one another's throats. Then you can embrace the Native American that might not look like you. They're not your enemy. They've been sold a bag of goods like you have. All right? Okay. Anyway, this is the new time slot, 8 p.m. weeknights. All right. So I'm going to start off with Mondays and Wednesdays, and then we'll build it up. We'll probably add in a Friday. We'll add in maybe some stuff during the week on a Tuesday and Thursday, probably once on a weekend. I'm not sure. All right. And then we'll take it from there. But in the meantime, between time, study, family. If anyone wants any research material that I have, all right, hit me up. All right. My phone number is 678 557-2919, 678-557-2919. All right. And if you're on right now, I'm about to hang up and get right back on at the 9 o'clock hour because we have Writers Row coming up right after this show. All right. I'll put my phone number in the chat. Text me if you want some research information. Just say, Griff, here's a Cash App donation. Please send me the information. I'm going to email you my email address. Send me the information. I want to know because I want to start my research. It's simple as that, family. All right, this is your brother, Professor Griff, right here on Arm the Masses on Black Power Media Reloaded at the new time slot. All right, 8 p.m. weeknights. All right, this is Professor Griff. Love you all to life. All right, revolution is not an event. It's a process. Begin the process, fam. All right, revolution, complete, constructive, conscious, cosmic change. This is Professor Griff. Love you all to life. Peace. Thank you.
Greetings, family. This is Professor Griff. I want to take this moment to thank everyone for supporting me in my efforts to raise the vibratory pitch of your thinking into your higher self. Thank you very much in my efforts right here on Serious Minds RNTV and Arm the Masses. All power to all the people. Thank you very much. If you would like to continue supporting, and if you are a new listener, please support by giving your donations right here on my Cash App, $ Professor Griff, and or go to www.professorgriff.me. Thank you very much. Peace. All power, all the people. Greetings, this is Professor Griff, and welcome to the Writer's Block, where literary consciousness meets conversation. Join me right here every week, Monday night at 9 p.m. right here on YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere you can see and hear your favorite podcasts. This is Professor Griff, and this is the Writer's Block, where words shape worlds, thoughts become movements. Writer's Block is more than just a podcast. It's a journey into the power of ideas. This is the environment where we bring forth authors, poets, and lyricists, and cultural thinkers who will write to awaken minds and shift culture right here on the Writer's Block with yours truly, Professor Griff. Peace. Breaking news, fam. Arm the Masses with your host, Professor Griff, has a new time slot, 8 p.m. weeknights right here on Arm the Masses, brought to you by Black Power Media Reloaded. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, weeknights at 8 p.m. The nighttime edition, Arm the Masses with your host, Professor Griff. I will see you in the PM. Peace. Greetings, family. This is Professor Griff. I want to take this moment to thank everyone for supporting me in my efforts to raise the vibratory pitch of your thinking into your higher self. Thank you very much in my efforts right here on Serious Minds RNTV and Arm the Masses. All power to all the people. Thank you very much. If you would like to continue supporting, and if you are a new listener, please support by giving your donations right here on my Cash App, $ Professor Griff, and or go to www.professorgriff.me. Thank you very much. Peace. All power, all the people.